average guy, old stories hit high, tells of struggle and strife. Keep your head in the fight. Broken bones in the street, ain't no place for the weak. From the land of the brave, where the words cut deep. Coming next on the air now, feel the despair. Generation X, shout out, shouting somewhere. Rising up from the dark with a fire and spark. Rage and passion combined to leave a lasting mark. Coming next, shouting loud, voices from the crowd. Through the mist of...
Today on the Common X podcast, we dive into one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in American history, the case of D.B. Cooper. Joining us is Bruce Smith, a journalist, author, and one of the most respected researchers on the Cooper case. Bruce has spent decades studying every lead, witness account, and theory surrounding the infamous 1971 skyjacking. He's written extensively about the case and has become a go-to voice for anyone serious about understanding both the facts and the mythology that surrounds D.B. Cooper. We're excited to unpack what makes this case endure, what we really know after all these years, and why it continues to capture the imagination of so many. Welcome, Bruce.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So, Bruce,
everybody out there, I hope you're D.B. Cooper fans.
oh, this
Who
is a Gen
isn't?
X audience. Yeah.
Only unsolved skyjacking in the history of the U.S.
This is going to be a big one. So, Bruce, what first got you interested in the D.B. Cooper case, and how has your perspective evolved over the years?
When D.B. Cooper stole his airplane, it was 52 years ago, or maybe 53. I'm losing track. And I was in college, so I'm an old guy. And back in those days, there was a skyjacking going on every other week, and it was like, fly me to Cuba, that kind of thing. And when it happened, it was like no big deal. Oh, he stole an airplane, all right, and he jumped out, really, parachuted out. No kidding, really, all right.
That's crazy.
And that was it. I had other things to worry about, like looking for a girlfriend, and finals coming up. I was in college, and that was it for 30 years until I moved. I was in New York. I grew up in Long Island, graduated from Hofstra University, and moved out to the Pacific Northwest in 1990 to go on a spiritual journey. I was a seeker, and I was 40 years old. And I moved out to Yale, Washington, to study at Ramtha School of Enlightenment. And that's a whole another topic that we can get into. Along the way, I became a newspaper reporter for a local newspaper called The Dispatch, and it was in Eatonville, Washington. And my editors were expanding, like the suburbs were growing, and they were building in another Safeway and expanding the roads and things. And my editors wanted to capitalize on all of that growth, so they needed another guy to write. So I was assigned to the unincorporated areas of Pierce County, which is about 30 miles south of Tacoma, and to start digging around and come up with stories. And being that I was writing for a weekly, meant I had to really dig into stories. And this one particular day, my editors wanted me to go cover an air show because they knew it'd be a lot of cool pictures. And also like a car show. It was in conjunction. It was an air show and car show. So they knew there'd be a lot of good pictures. We put it on the front page, and they sell a lot of papers. So off I went to the air show, and I'm looking at a Fairchild 24, which was in its day, in the 1930s, was the Rolls Royce. It was like a Learjet today. It was like the equivalent in the 1930s. And the plane looked very similar to the plane, the Spirit of St. Louis, that Lindbergh flew across the Atlantic in 1927. And I built a model of it as a kid. And I'm going, wow, I've never seen this before. And it was really restored beautifully.
Wow.
Looking in the windows, and and this guy comes up, he puts his hand on my shoulder. He says, hey, you like my airplane? Yeah, really. Yeah. And so that guy's name was Ron Foreman. And we start talking about the plane and growing up on Long Island and building models as a kid and stuff. So he says, hey, it's a really hot day. Let's go. Let's sit in the shade. And we sit down. You want a nice cold Coke? I said, I bet you. You bet you I sure do. And as we're just hanging out, I see a book on the tarmac that says D.B. Cooper, death, something, something, legend, something, something, something. I go, hey, Ron, you into D.B. Cooper? He says, hell yeah, I just wrote that book. Came out last week. I said, no fooling, right? And we spent the rest of the day talking about the book, which is a very detailed confession to the D.B. Cooper case that a friend of his gave to him 20 or 30 years before. And he waited until the friend died before he wrote the book. But he had been keeping notes with his wife every time they'd ask her questions and every time she'd say something. And she had two secrets. So the first secret is, I'm D.B. Cooper. The second secret is that she was the first person in Washington State to have a sex change operation.
Wait, hold on. Are you saying you know who D.B. Cooper is?
Well,
And it went from a
I'm
guy
telling
to
you
a
who
girl?
confessed to being D.B. Cooper.
Okay.
And if
Okay.
in my book, we have an in-depth discussion of the over 900 people who have confessed to being D.B. Cooper and the several dozen families that are absolutely convinced that Daddy was D.B. Cooper, and
Right.
they're planting their flag on the hill, and they're going to die there.
Right.
That was D.B. All right. That's at least 3 dozen people doing that. 3 dozen families.
Dang it. I thought we were
They
going to
can't
find out who D.B. Cooper is like right off the bat.
There have been almost fist fights at some of the conferences when these folks get going. At any rate,
Bruce, you had me thinking like this thing's been going on for so many years, and Common X just solved it, and like you and Common X, we just released it right here. Dang it,
Well,
it's
maybe,
not the case,
but
huh?
He
well,
could have.
the
We'll
question
see.
is,
Let him talk.
the question is, why are so many people confessing to being D.B. Cooper, and are any of them truthful? And that really gets into the whole, how crazy is the world, and people want to be famous, and
They're 15 minutes of fame,
that's a whole show in and of itself, right?
Yeah.
But as an investigative reporter and a guy writing about D.B. Cooper, I'm here to tell you there's well over 900 people
Holy smokes.
that have publicly and legally claimed to be D.B. Cooper.
Oh man.
And I've asked the FBI, and the FBI doesn't want to deal with this with a 10-foot pole.
Right.
But
That's why they released the files, right?
One FBI agent told me on the QT, he said, yeah, there were hundreds of people coming forward. He said, most of them were cons. Most of them were in prison. And they were looking for an upgrade from like a state prison to a federal prison because the food's better.
Oh, okay.
And they might get some air conditioning. All right. So if they're down in Louisiana, in 100-degree heat, it might be nice to get bumped up to a federal penitentiary in Minnesota with air conditioning. So there was that kind of thing, and they knew that. And the guy told me, he says, in these kinds of cases that aren't solved, that are totally open-ended, he said, this is what we deal with. We deal with it. It just gets crazier and crazier and bigger and bigger. And at some point, you just can't wrap your arms around it anymore. And you certainly can't wrap your head around it anymore. The best that you can take is just take a little bite out of it and deal with like a piece of evidence, and go with what you got, which is one of the hallmarks of why the case is so fascinating. Not only has it never been solved, and we don't know who D.B. Cooper is at all. We don't know where he came from. We're assuming he's a he, all right? Because that's Barb's, the transgender woman said that she used to be Bob, and then she was Barb, and she reverted to her male persona to do the skyjacking. So we're not even showing the genders, all right? But be that as it may, even the evidence is so skimpy. There's nothing physically that's ever been found of the skyjacking. No body, no parachute, no bomb. The money's all gone, except for $6,000 or $7,000, $8,000 worth of bills.
Yeah. Didn't like a kid
Oh,
find like
parts of
$5,800?
Yeah, on the beach
that
or
were
something,
found
right?
about 10 years later on a
Yeah.
beach on the Columbia River, and
Right.
nobody knows how the money got there or when.
Mhm.
So there's really two mysteries. Who's DB Cooper and how'd the money get here?
Exactly.
And no one has any ideas. Well, a lot of people have ideas, but no one knows conclusively, forensically, have any answers to any of those questions.
Yeah, that makes that the wildest case ever.
So it
Just
Yeah, I
drives
mean,
it drives the case.
yeah,
And
I mean, if I was DB Cooper, I'd definitely leave like $6,000 laying around or floating down the Columbia River to be found later. So you're like, oh, yep, he died.
that's the FBI. Most FBI agents would agree with you.
Yeah,
Most civilian
most.
investigators like me don't.
Interesting.
No,
what do
no.
you think is the most misunderstood detail about the DB Cooper hijacking?
Just said it. The money was planted and it floated down the river. We now have conclusive evidence. So what really opened the case up to the public was the advent of chat rooms, email, and the internet, and it exploded in around 2008. And the FBI agent in charge of the DB Cooper case in 2008 joined a chat room. The guy's name is Larry Carr. He's recently retired, has a lot of commentary, and offered a lot of evidence and a lot of inside knowledge about the case. And a lot of people just jumped on that, and it just exploded. All right. The next thing that happened from that, Larry Carr, as an FBI agent, started what was called the Citizen Sleuth Team, which was basically an FBI affiliate. They were all citizens. They didn't get paid. They were all volunteers, but they were all scientists. And they were taking the evidence that was available, provided by Larry Carr, and doing some analysis on it. And you would say, how come the FBI didn't do this? And that question has never been answered by the FBI. You can say, well, we didn't have that technology back in the day. Yeah, well, how come you don't have it now? Because we got these guys down in Oshkosh, Bagosh that are doing it in their own home laboratory in the backyard. Come on,
Yeah.
get with the program, folks. Come on.
Do you think?
But
Yeah, because
Go ahead,
there were
Jim.
like cigarettes found, cigarette butts, and like I think they said like a hair sample was left behind.
yes,
So they never did DNA analysis of that.
no, and the FBI says we didn't have the technology, and to some degree that's true.
Yeah, 71.
DNA
pretty early.
analysis was first being investigated as forensic evidence in the 60s, but the technology and the knowledge of it had not permeated the culture of law enforcement significantly until about the 90s.
Okay.
So DB Cooper was in that window where no one was really thinking DNA. And part of the mystery of the case is people, and it gets fascinated, as you start digging in to this case, you find little things like, gee, I wonder where those cigarette butts are now.
Right.
Do you lose them?
I mean, I can
Yeah.
see how they wouldn't bag them up on account of like it being
Yeah.
1971.
And there are people saying, well, the FBI destroyed them because they were tested by the FBI lab, and the technician wrote a note sending it back to the agent that sent it in, saying this is no longer of evidentiary, there's no further evidentiary use to this because we tested it for blood type. Right?
Oh, yeah.
And we don't know DB Cooper's blood type. All we know is the kind of blood that was on the saliva that was on the cigarettes. Is that DB Cooper's? Maybe. Bottom line is the FBI does not have the cigarette butts now. There are FBI agents who believe the cigarette butts and the hair sample and a couple of other things that are lost actually got misdirected. Part of the problem, and my book is DB Cooper and the FBI. And it's a book about both. And you can't understand what happened in this skyjacking unless you look at both elements. And the hallmark dynamic in the FBI, in the DB Cooper case, is that Cooper, his crime spanned multiple jurisdictions, and he had lots of copycats. He had a dozen copycats who did the same crime afterwards. And the question is, are they linked in some fashion? So you had multiple FBI offices digging into the case. And when Cooper, his getaway plane, had to land for refueling, so the skyjacking started in Portland,
Right.
Oregon. The plane goes to Seattle to get the ransom money and the parachutes, and Cooper lets the passengers go. And Seattle agents then took over the case from Portland because, like, it's our money, okay? That we're
Right.
giving back. So they had more leverage over Portland. So you have internal friction, all right? Who's in charge? Seattle is now in charge. DB Cooper's getaway plane is flying to Mexico. So they're
Right.
the plane, he wanted the plane to fly with a specific configuration for skydiving, which means the wheels would have to slow the plane down. So the plane normally would be flying, normal jets fly at 500 miles an hour. You have to skydive, you have to slow the plane down to under 200. And to do that, you have to drop the wheels down. You have to lower the flaps down like you're coming in for a landing. Don't go over 10,000 feet because there's not enough oxygen up there, and like that. And so Cooper gave them a lot of metrics to follow. And the pilot said, yeah, we can do that, but we ain't going to get to Mexico like that. We're going to have to stop and get some more gas. And he said, okay, one more stop, who cares, right? And said, yeah, so we're gonna stop in San Francisco. And DB Cooper goes, no, you're not. We're not going to a major city.
Right.
How did he get him to do all this? How did he get him to comply?
Because he had a
with that?
bomb, man. He said he was going to light the bomb off.
He just got the pilots. This is like the most amazing crime ever, man. It had to have been pulled off to perfection.
Look, in terms of the dynamics of who's doing what and how the decisions were made, the airlines were calling the shots, and they had learned not to trust the FBI 100% because they had different agendas.
All right. From
the airline's point of view, it was cheaper to give the skyjacker what he wants.
Right.
Okay.
And there's no lawsuit or something happens and everybody sues you.
Right. So they get their plane back, okay, with no holes in it, and no injured passengers and no lawsuits, and there's no attorneys involved. And so that plane can fly the next day and make money. From the airline's point of view, that's the smart business move. From the FBI, no way.
The guy $200,000.
You're gonna let your criminal get away with this? Not if we had anything to do with it.
So who paid the ransom then? Was it the airlines or was it FBI?
It was paid by an insurance company. To the FBI.
Oh, interesting.
Credit, okay. To the FBI's credit, they had begun stockpiling large sums of money near field offices, about 200 across the country, for this very crime. The FBI anticipated there would be a unique, bold, violent extortion crime that they would have to deal with very quickly. Up until that point, it was like, we can't get you the money until Monday when the banks open up. Do you want some pizza? That was basically what, and they made a movie of it, Dog Day Afternoon. I mean, it's exactly, okay?
We give you a Coke and a smile.
Yeah, that's right, right. So the FBI decided we're going to give
travel peanuts
money accessible in extortion cases. And that's what happened. The money arrived at the airport lickety split because it had all been figured out. The money had all been counted. It had all been recorded, microfiched and all that, all the numbers and everything like that. It was good to go. It was the parachutes that screwed everybody's mind. It's like, well, he wants parachutes.
Hey, what's he doing?
Yeah, when are we going to get parachutes? You know,
Yeah,
Wait,
was
is
there
this guy
like
really
big-
gonna blow the plane up?
right. It's like, yeah, it's like simple, but not simple.
Right.
Took them a couple hours. We got to call a surplus store or an aviation shop. We got to talk to some pilots. Can we borrow your parachutes? Things like that. Because DB Cooper specified he did not want military chutes, which would have been the easy answer. So it had to get where are the civilian parachutes that are available. At any rate, he lands in Reno for refueling because his plane, as the pilots called it, was flying dirty. Okay, with the wings and the wheels are down and all that. And he's not on the plane. He's already jumped. So the plane stays in Reno Airport, and an FBI team goes on board to conduct a forensic investigation, find out what's left. Okay, and there's a lot left. Now, that was another FBI office. It was a hybrid team that was led by agents from the Las Vegas office, but the local agents in Reno were also on the team. Plus, every cop in that part of Nevada wanted to be part of the action. So they had 200 cop cars
Absolutely.
riding
Oh,
around
God.
the airport. It was chaos, okay?
Well, and they think he jumped out around Mount St. Helens, right?
Well, some people do.
Right.
Some people don't. The question is, why don't we know where Cooper jumped, which would really help us to figure out where he landed? Because whether he lived or died, he was on the ground in about 10 or 15 minutes. He
Right.
may have been on the ground a little earlier than that, maybe like 30 seconds. But
Yeah, if you didn't open
we
shoot,
know
right.
he should be on the ground somewhere because he's not on the plane.
Yeah.
And
DB gone.
DB definitely gone. Okay. Now the problem is investigatorial. We don't know exactly where the plane was or exactly when DB Cooper jumped. We have a pretty good idea. And in 1971, a good idea was good enough. Now we need more specificity. We need GPS coordinates.
Mm-hmm.
We need UTC direct atomic clock time to the second. All right.
Right.
You get
The
that.
plane's black box recorded exactly when the door opened.
They
right.
didn't,
Yeah. That
right.
stuff. Yeah.
They
They didn't have that back then.
right.
No.
So there was general disagreement about when he jumped. There's a window of, depending who you talk to, most people would say on the FBI and air traffic controllers and civilian investigators like me would say he jumped somewhere around 8:12 p.m., 8:13, maybe a little earlier, but no earlier than 8:10, and certainly no later than 8:15. So, but the plane's flying 3 miles a minute. So if you're off by 3 or 4 minutes, you're off by 10, 15 miles. That's a lot of woods to be looking through in the rain, in the dark, the night before Thanksgiving. So, which is when this skyjacking took place. And the idea that DB Cooper selected the night before a major holiday, when he knew the FBI agents, the A team, would be on holiday leave, and the B team agents would be minding the store, right?
Right.
You think
So that's
he got that far?
All right.
He knew the JV team was on duty, and he
Right, the JV team was controlling the ball, right? Yeah,
It almost sounds like a former FBI agent.
yeah, the cigarette butts are gone, man.
right.
Did they know that they? I mean, could that possibly be an FBI conspiracy, like Jared said? I mean, if they had some inside knowledge about the insurance money, and then they wouldn't have to wait till Monday or whatever. Do you think that's a possibility?
From my point of view, everything's on the table.
Yeah. That's the thing with this case. There's so many open ends.
Corrupt cops, good cops making bad decisions, bad cops, good cops getting bad information so they're not making accurate decisions. Here's one example, all right? So the JV varsity, the JV team is handling the case, but there's jurisdictional issues right off the bat.
Right.
You've got the landing zone was the plane began to, as the pilots call it, curtsy around somewhere between that 8:11, 8:12, 8:13, 8:15 time period in the evening, the night before Thanksgiving. And they figured that's when Cooper opened up the rear stairs. He skyjacked a 727, a Boeing 727, which is a very popular plane back in that day. There's none of them around now. But back in that day, it had its own little staircase. So passengers could get on and get off instead of waiting for some ramp to be pushed up on a truck. This is way before the jetways where you show your pass to the agent and you walk down that long hallway and it usually zigs and maybe zags a little bit and you walk right on the plane. That wasn't, those jetways were not commonplace in 1971. And so airlines loved the 727 because it was very doable to get people on and off the plane very quickly. So that's what DB Cooper lowered. He lowered the internal staircase. And that's probably the primary piece of evidence, is that DB Cooper knew how to skydive out of a 727. Because until he did that, no one in the world knew that outside of upper level military and upper level engineering and technical staff at Boeing. This was considered to be a top secret because we didn't want the Ruskies to know that a 727 could drop saboteurs like over the White House out the back of this airplane that flies in as a commercial with a commercial signature, right? So there was national security issues that were rampant. And Northwest Orient, which owned the plane that got skyjacked, did not know you could fly a 727 with this staircase down and the plane wouldn't crash.
Interesting.
And it took the CIA to tell him, no, you can do that. Cooper knows what he's doing because that's what he's telling you to do to that plane, the configuration on how to fly, drop the wheels down and everything and the flaps. That's what we're doing over here in Southeast Asia and Vietnam because the war's going on. Right?
Wow.
Yeah. So the FBI contacted the CIA. Do you guys know anything about skyjacking a 727? They said, as a matter of fact, we do. So
we do it every day.
No way.
Right, they do. They were doing it every day. Right.
We're dropping soldiers over Vietnam on
It's
commercial
another day in
flights.
the office, right? So, so Boeing, Boeing and the pilots are playing catch up. It's like this guy wants parachutes. What the hell are we going to be doing? The flaps, it's 15 degrees, and our lives are on the line. So the pilots felt that they were in a wartime situation. The co-pilot told me, he said, it felt like we were at war. We wanted to get him, and he wanted to get us. And what the pilot wanted to do was, being that it's a cloudy, rainy day, it's November in the Pacific Northwest, it's raining all the time everywhere. Yes, he wanted to sneak past all the clouds, go out over the ocean. Let DB Cooper jump over the Pacific Ocean, see how long he can tread water with 20 pounds of 20s tied to his waist.
Yeah, no kidding.
Because he asked for $200,000 in 20s. He seemed to know, or he was incredibly lucky. He knew that the FBI was stockpiling $250,000 worth of cash in these banks all over the country. So did he have inside information? Maybe not.
Sounds like it.
Maybe he just got lucky.
Or a talkie friend.
Who knows?
Well, didn't they have $500 bills still back then?
No.
Okay.
No, they had what we have now: the 5s, the 10s, the 20s,
up to 100.
That's it.
Okay.
It is so wild to us too, because I grew up in Port Orchard, Washington. Jared grew up here in Spokane and in Vancouver, Washington. So we know that weather, man.
Yeah, and we grew up with the story, so
so like the thought, like for us as kids, would have been like, would they have opened school that day? For DB Cooper, is like, oh, I'm going to jump out a plane with $200,000, $250,000 today. That's just wild.
Yeah. And one point about the FBI and the nature of large-scale bureaucratic law enforcement, they do some things very well, but there's a lot of things they don't do very well. They don't act quickly. Whatever they're going to do, it takes a long time to get it done. And one of the issues was going on the ground to look for DB Cooper, either find his body or a parachute or something. And the best that they could do, and this is where Portland jumps in, even though they didn't have jurisdiction. It's like, yeah, but it started with us. And he landed probably just north of Portland, somewhere across the Columbia River in Washington. We just don't know where exactly. So what we need to do is we need to start flying around the Vancouver, Battleground, Amboy, Ariel, Washington area, the whole logging area and the rolling hills and the dairy farms and all of that. And he became the FBI agent out of Portland. His name was Ralph Himmelsbach. He became the public face of the FBI investigation, even though he had no authority to do so, because it was somebody else's case. The case agent at that time was a Seattle agent by the name of Charlie Farrell, and nobody knows his name because Charlie never went in front of a camera. Whereas Ralph, if you weren't holding onto your microphone, Ralph would grab it from you. All right. He was that kind of guy. A lot of FBI agents hated Ralph's guts because of that, but a lot of people love him because he had the cojones to get in front of a camera, and he spoke his mind, and he talked about the evidence as he knew it. He was also a fighter pilot from World War II, and he had his own plane.
Really?
So he said, okay, Cooper jumped somewhere north of Vancouver, somewhere north of Portland, out there in the boonies. Okay. He gets in his plane, he's flying around. It's raining, it's foggy, it's cloudy, he doesn't see much. He's out there for a couple hours. He says, I don't see anything. He's flying low right over the treetops and things like that. It's getting kind of scary, because there are some mountains. You keep going up towards Mount St. Helens, which is maybe 30, 40 miles east of the speculated drop zone. You don't want to crash your plane. So, they saw what they could see. Yeah. And then it was a question, we got to get boots on the ground. So Ralph was in the air Thanksgiving morning, and that was it. Nobody went in the ground in the area that he flew over until the next day, Friday, after lunch. And by then, the FBI agents that were assigned to the case, and there were about 20 or 30, there was a whole bunch of them, right? Their attitude was, we're the Federal Bureau of Investigation. We wear suits, nice shoes. We're going to go ask questions of waitresses, cab drivers, bus drivers, hotel people, people that may have seen DB Cooper or interacted with him. Going off into the mud, in the rain, in the boonies, we don't do that. Right. So it got the ground search got
for the local cops.
The grunts. It got pushed down the food chain. Who's lowest on the law enforcement food chain? County sheriff deputies.
Yep.
Now,
poor bastards.
Yeah. Well, it's just embrace the suck. It's the job.
Right. The ground pounder.
Signed up for it. But you think you're going to go drink coffee and ride around your cruiser eating donuts? No. There's more to it. So anyway, the county, I think it was Cowlitz County or it was some county.
Yeah, it sounds right.
Yeah, the suspected drop zones straddled a couple different counties, and so again, a couple different sheriff's departments got involved. And they back in the 70s, we didn't have a lot of cops. Nowadays, the law enforcement agencies are triple the size that they were back in the 70s. So the county only had maybe a couple dozen deputies to pull from it because they pull everybody in on their day off and everything like that. But how much woods can you look with 20 guys? So they started calling in fire department guys and volunteers. Who can you trust not to screw this up, and who's going to be able to be smart enough to take care of themselves and not get injured?
Right.
Out in the woods.
If they do find a body and a big bag of
Right,
money, are they going to
right.
tell you?
We know enough about police
Yeah, no
procedure.
kidding.
Yeah,
Right.
you find the body, you find something, you call out, you call it in, whatever.
Yeah, I ain't found jack crap.
Right. Well, that's exactly what happened. They didn't find
Uh-huh.
that crap.
Yeah.
Okay. They had a few dozen guys out in the woods, and what became apparent to them pretty quickly was we didn't find Cooper, but we did find a lot of scared citizens. We found a
Interesting.
lot of nervous taxpayers. And that became a focus of the FBI. We got to take care of where the money comes from. We got to take care
Mhm.
of people. So they redirected people from looking in the woods for Cooper to looking in homes and garages and woodsheds and outbuildings and barns and things like that. And they saturated the whole area, looking at people's property and letting the taxpayers know we're on the job. I'm here to tell you, people in that area still talk about it very favorably. So public
Wow.
relations wise, major score. So, and from the FBI's, from law enforcement's point of view, public relations trumps pretty much anything else in an investigation. If it
So-
doesn't look good, we don't talk about it.
So they
And-
think they did a good job?
Huh?
They think they did a good job, basically?
I think I haven't asked an FBI agent that question, but I would suspect that he would say something along the lines, I did what I was asked to do, and I did did my job well. Okay. Whether it was effective or meaningful from an investigatory point of view, did it advance the case? So you can make the argument that it was, but from my point of view, it was a misdirection of resources, from my point of view. The FBI recognized that, and they said, we need more bodies. And when they called in the Army. But by the time all of that was able to be organized, get hundreds of guys, where are they going to bivouac? Where are we going to put them up? Who's going to feed them? How about latrines? When are they going to take showers? There's a lot to it when you're moving hundreds of men, all right?
And now
So
you're spending
4
more
months
money
to
than he
get
took.
So the next push in the woods
Yeah,
to
dude.
Cooper occurred in the spring, 4 months later.
Okay.
All right. And they had hundreds of guys. And the FBI agents at that point said, yeah, okay, I guess I'm going to get my shoes muddy. All right. So they had 20 guys out there, FBI agents. When I talked to them, they said, yeah, it sucked.
Yeah.
Now they didn't find
And not even a parachute. Not even a parachute.
They didn't find parachutes. They found nothing from the skyjacking. What they did find were the bodies of women who had been sexually raped, mutilated, assaulted. Most of them were prostitutes. And so they stumbled into a lot of other crimes.
Yeah.
Right.
And so there's a lingering stink in the air in that area, in that Amboy, north, the suburbs, 20 miles north of
Colton. Yeah.
Colton. Everything. Woodburn, Woodland,
Woodlands,
Woodland. Yeah. So, and there are some people who didn't trust the government at all.
Right.
And the FBI roaming around and the soldiers roaming around and helicopters flying, choop, 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 landing in somebody's backyard. That really set off some people, and they're still angry. Okay.
Right. We're searching for DB Cooper.
Yeah, right.
Nothing else to see here.
Right. And they have stories. They have stories of incompetency and mediocrity and bad police work, like guys jumping out of a Chinook helicopter, knocking on the door of some farmhouse saying, where am I? It's like, go to hell. That's where you are.
Yeah, that's just so wild.
Don't land in my backyard unless you know it's my backyard. Where are your maps? Weren't you briefed on this? Come on. So, and then they started interrogating. locals start taking pictures of them because this is a big event. Like, hey, I got a helicopter with 20 guys in my backyard. They start taking
Right.
pictures of everybody. Those guys get hauled in for questioning. That pissed off their mothers.
Oh man,
got-
yeah,
you
because
got
they
my
didn't have
kid
TikTok or nothing
In
then.
jail
Right.
because he has a camera? Are you friggin' kidding me? Come on. You know,
Right.
so this is the reality of large scale, cobbled together law enforcement investigations. This is the way it is. This isn't like the movies. This is not on the TV shows. This is not Law and Order. This is not NCIS. This is the DB
Right.
Cooper case, how it really happened.
Right. You can't just say enhance and see a license plate from 600,000 feet away. Like TV. Enhance.
Yeah, it is. It is.
That's crazy.
So, like, what do you think, Bruce? Do you think that they ever even got close? Like, we've heard suspects before. You know, we've seen Netflix documentaries, and they've listed a few folks. You know, and I mean that sketch, dude. The sketch. I mean, what do you think?
I think the sketches, and there are 5 of them, are as good as they got, and they were done by different people. The first sketch was done the night of in Reno by a Las Vegas FBI agent who was part of the crew that went up to Reno and sat down with the flight attendant who was held hostage. So the crew of the plane that landed in Reno for the refueling was the pilot, the captain, the co-pilot, and the flight engineer who handled communications, weather, and all the electronics and everything, the fuel consumption and the engines and temperature and all that kind of stuff. And one flight attendant that Cooper kept on board as a hostage. And one of the most compelling, for me, compelling pieces of evidence is that it seems as though Cooper did not know how to open the door to lower the staircase.
Interesting. So did the flight attendant do that
He
for?
knew everything else about skydiving out of the plane. He just didn't know how to open the damn thing up. And as it turns out, it's a simple little lever that goes, that's it.
He's like the biggest badass in American history for
And he
pulling off the perfect crime.
pulling the lever.
But he couldn't open the
damn
door. Yeah.
Yeah. Which suggests that he may have been a commando. He may have done this before. He knew how to do it, but the door was always open for him by a jump master. You know, that's what
the
that's
military
what
aspect comes back. Okay.
Yeah. So the fact that Cooper knew so much about the metrics of the jump suggests to me and to many others that Cooper had military training and that it's possible that he was trained by Uncle Sam how to do this, that he knew how to jump out of a plane in the rain, in November, in the cold, land in the woods, how to get yourself if you're snagged on a treetop, he had survival skills, how to keep yourself alive, what happens if you break a leg or something like that. He knew how to take care of himself. He wasn't, some bozo that said, hey, wouldn't that be cool? I'm going to steal a plane tonight.
Well, and also too, he wasn't dressed for the elements or anything, was he?
He wasn't dressed for the elements, but he was dressed for the job. His dress was his camouflage. He looked like a businessman, and no one suspected anything. And when he handed the stewardess the note saying, "Miss, I have a bomb. I'm hijacking your plane. I want you to sit next to me, and I'll give you my ransom demands." No one took him seriously. They thought this guy wants a date with me. That's the flight attendant's first thought. This guy's hitting him.
And you look at the way that they portrayed flight attendants and stuff too, probably around that time. If my history is right, they were kind of like it was kind of like that, right? Like
very much so. She was
sexy.
the runner-up to the Miss Arkansas 1968 beauty contest. She was, I think, the runner-up or third or something like that. She was on the hot seat with Northwest Orient because she was gaining weight, so she wasn't as curvy as she was when they hired her. And she was wearing, corsets and girdles and things like that to slim her down, and not eating donuts and bitching about it. So that's what life was like as a flight attendant in 1971. You were a sex object, and that's just the long and short of it.
And he was just another guy trying to pinch her
Yeah.
butt or something going on the aisle.
Yeah,
And she's
right,
like, wait a minute, this
exactly.
guy's
Yeah.
serious.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Can't say bomb on an airplane.
yeah. He was also outside of the parameters of what most criminals look like. He looked like an average guy. He looked like a businessman. And he's in his mid-40s. There aren't many middle-aged men committing violent crimes. Most of the gun-toting, bomb-toting kind of guys doing dirty work are young guys. They're in their 20s. They're young and stupid. They feel invincible. They've got it half figured out. This was a well thought out, well orchestrated skyjacking.
And you think he was in his middle 40s, mid 40s?
Yeah. First report came in, he was 60 years old.
Geez, because I mean, I'm 45. There's no way I'm pulling this off. There's no way. Of course, granted, I don't have skills or anything like that, or let alone I don't have the courage, I guess, to attempt something like that. But this guy, you're thinking he was around 45 years old and he did this in the elements? And
that's the prevailing view. There is growing awareness that some of the people, like one of the flight attendants, has now said, and she's still alive, and she said he might have been in his late 30s. So somewhere between 38 to 45.
Yeah.
But so there's three flight attendants. There's three flight attendants that interacted with DB Cooper. The one that was the hostage certainly knows him the best and was with him for hours. And her name is Tina, and they're making a movie. I understand that they're going to be making a movie about her experience.
Interesting.
And the title is not if you understand, not if you know, something like that. That's a strange title. And the other flight attendants, the purser was Alice, and she's quite outspoken, and she was in first class, so she's in the front of the plane. And she is the one that's saying, yeah, late 30s maybe. And the one who was Miss Arkansas is Florence, and she was rattled up the yin-yang when she realized what's going on. And she's still shaky. So when you see her in interviews, she's an anxious woman.
Yeah.
So
PTSD still.
Yeah. I think they all have PTSD to some degree.
Oh yeah. I mean, if you're on a plane with some guy that has a bomb, are we gonna all die today?
Yeah. Tina had a wonderful perspective. After the skyjacking, Tina worked for Northwest Orient for a couple of years and then quit. And what she did afterwards is pretty murky. And she has lied publicly about these missing years. She said she continued to work with Northwest Orient as a flight attendant until 1981. That's not true from what we can tell. I know she was hospitalized in Gresham, Washington in a long-term healthcare facility in 1979. I also know that she entered a convent in Eugene, Oregon, shortly thereafter in the spring or early summer of 1979, and was there in a cloistered convent for 12 years. Because I talked to the nuns.
Mm-hmm.
And so why is Tina lying? Or is she confused? Or is she just doesn't remember accurately? Is this a manifestation of really serious PTSD? Or is she so tired of getting phone calls from guys like me that it's basically a screw you?
Yeah.
I'm just going to tell you whatever I have to tell you to get you out of here.
Yeah.
So Tina's personal journey. Tina was married for about 2 years, and I've talked to her ex-husband, and he's still nervous. Interestingly enough, he confirmed to me what Tina had said to somebody, not to me and not in public, not in the written record, but Tina had indicated that she felt she was being followed when she was married. So those missing years, 1975-ish, 76-ish, 77. someone that she was being followed by the FBI agents. And I talked to her husband at the time, and I said, was it a surveillance team or a security team? And he said it could have been either. He said, knowing the FBI the way I do, it could have been either. I said, boy, that's a heavy pressure. You got guys wearing trench coats half a block down behind you, and you don't know what's going on. He says, yeah, it sucked, you know.
So
certainly, yeah.
who opened the door then? Did he figure it out and open it, or did the flight attendant open
Tina
it?
showed him. Tina showed him, and or at least told him how to do it. And he
Interesting.
did it. And Tina stayed back in her seat. She was afraid she was going to get sucked out when the door went down. That poof. But that was again one of the metrics that Cooper said: don't
Right,
pressurize
go
the plane.
between
Keep
under
it
10,000.
unpressurized. Don't go
Yeah.
over 10,000 feet, so we all have enough oxygen to breathe. And when we open the door, we're not going to have the whoosh. So
Right.
Tina was cool on that. Pilots weren't sure about that. The pilots, and it's now revealed that the pilots had talked to Tina over the intercom that maybe we can get some rope back there. We got rope up here in the cockpit, and maybe we can get it back to you, and you can lynch yourself
Tie off.
there, you know,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
So if she was still back in the plane, she didn't give a time of when he jumped out, or was she like up in first class, couldn't see him, or what?
He sent her up. So the plane takes off from Seattle on the getaway flight about 7:30 at night. Cooper puts his parachute on one parachute on right away. He has 4 parachutes. He's got 2 back, 2 front. He puts one of the back on, and then he starts cutting up, and he's got the money. So and the passengers have been released, and he's lynching the money bag, and apparently taking some. The bag was too full with bundles of 20s, so he took some of the bundles out and was cutting up some of the reserve chutes, the belly chutes. And at that point, at some point, Tina saw him cinching the bag with rope that he cut from one of the reserve chutes. So he had a knife. It's like, whoa,
Right.
How did he get on a plane with a knife? Well, in 1971, you can get on a plane
nobody
with
checked. Yeah.
no one's.
I mean, you could still smoke on a plane back then.
Right,
So.
right, you know, right.
Yeah, dude.
So at that point, he said, okay, you can go up. And she went up to the cockpit, and she was ready to get out of there. She was ready to go be up in the cockpit with the 3 pilots. And as she's closing the gate, the curtain, the first class, because he said, when you get up there, close the curtain to first class. She could see him doing something with one of the other reserves, like trying to put some money in it or something. It wasn't quite clear about exactly what she saw and what Cooper was doing. But it's believed that he was using the second reserve chute as some kind of secondary money bag of some kind.
Okay.
At that point, Tina is up in the cockpit at least around 7:50. And so that gives you more than 20 minutes that Cooper's by himself in the back of the plane. What is he doing?
Right.
I don't know. Because he doesn't lower the staircase until about 8:10, and he doesn't walk down, and the plane doesn't start curtsying until about 8:11 or 8:12, and then there's a big bump at 8:13-ish, and that's when they figure he jumped off the bottom of the steps, and like a springboard, you know, when the weight was off, poof, the staircase comes back into the fuselage and slams it, and the plane is really rocking. And then so the pilots trimmed it out, and everything was good.
That seems like the most logical explanation. So, I mean, I would say that, Jared, what do you think? Can they dial it down to 8:13?
Sounds like pretty close. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe a 5-minute window in there. And
There
you
is a
should be able to get a location approximation. So
there are now annual DB Cooper conferences where these kinds of details are really meshed out, really hashed out.
yeah.
And there's a fellow by the name of Chris Cunningham, who is one of the hosts of the conferences. And he has really zeroed in on the time frame and how the FBI and how the military analyzed their data, who said what, when, and why, and what was it, how was it interpreted. And it's now believed that there was a misunderstanding between some of the technical people about what the beginning oscillations of the curtsy meant. And it's now believed that that was the lowering of the staircase, and that there was a jump moment. And that jump is now pretty much agreed upon, but not universally agreed, to be 813. Some people say 812, some people say 814. And that gives you 6 miles, 7 miles worth of, that's a lot more woods to look at.
Yeah,
Right. It's just like the JFK, man. Second shooter, third shooter, fourth shooter. Right.
Yeah, the difference that miles make in just a minute at that speed and altitude.
The plane was flying. The plane was flying about 180 miles an hour when he jumped, so there was a lot of turbulence. And I've talked to people who have done skyjackings, and what it was like to jump out of the seven. I talked to some of the DB Cooper.
You did? You talked to people that jumped out of a plane and did that?
Yeah, I talked to some of the copycats. Yeah, because a lot of them, anybody that got arrested back then is now out of prison. It's like 3 strikes and you're out did not exist in 1971. So people who did skyjackings got 10 years in prison, 20 years in prison, and they're now out. Right?
Dude, so yeah, tell us about like what some of those guys had to say. I mean, like, are they bummed because like, oh, DB got it right, here's where I messed up, like that kind of banter? Or
it all depends. The one guy I talked to extensively, and I've written about him in my book, his name is Rob Hetty. He stole an airplane, and he did so because he felt Vietnam and his PTSD had really messed him up. And my takeaway from my conversations with Rob is that he views his incarceration as a vital and important part of his rehabilitation, of his healing, of his psychological healing. Like, it was good to be put on ice for 10 years because it gave him time to think and just let the anger and the confusion, and because when he stole the airplane, it was like, if you're not getting yours, you're a loser. And he did his time in Vietnam, and now it's my time. I'm going to get mine, and I'm a skydiver. I know what to do, and I'm going to grab my money and I'm going to go. And that was his attitude. And
how far did he get in his excursion?
he landed on the ground with his money.
Wow.
Yeah. Of the 12 guys who did the skyjacking, the 12 copycats, 5 of them made it to the ground. So when the FBI says, "Oh, Cooper didn't know what he was doing, he died in the jump," it's like, well, how come the other guys made it? You know?
So you're telling me there's 5 other guys that did this exact same thing, got the money.
Yeah.
Got the money and everything.
Yeah.
And it jumped out and made it to the ground.
Yeah.
And they were located?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that gives proof that you could do it.
Exactly.
Holy smokes.
One of the guys, probably the most successful copycat, was a guy by the name of Hanneman. And he kept extending the goal, where we're going to go. And he flew over the jungle of Honduras. So he stole a plane out of New Orleans. And instead of going to Miami, where they were originally scheduled, he said, we're going to make a little turn. We're going south. And jumped out over Honduras, and he had it all planned out. And he was part of a right-wing paramilitary organization. He saw this as, I'm stealing money for the cause. And he landed in the jungle. He had his money. He spoke Spanish. He knew the natives. He knew everybody out in the woods, out in the jungle. And he got paranoid after 30 days on the run, and turned himself into the U.S. Embassy and said,
"Hi, you guy pulled off a DB Cooper, and then he felt bad."
He felt bad, right? Now, get this.
You want to see if he could do it?
He turned himself. No, he wanted to get the money. It was a money making scheme. He wanted to fund his paramilitary buddies, and he turned himself in, and so he would be safe. So no gun-toting federale would be, shoot first, ask questions later kind of thing, and he would be safe in a prison in the American embassy. But he didn't He didn't give him the money. So they held him under arrest and they imprisoned him and adjudicated him. And they kept trying to figure out where the money was. And they ultimately found it through usual spook work of finding where all the contacts and the paramilitary organization, the right wing crazy people down in Honduras and everything. And the CIA ended up snatching the money back. So, but it took them a year.
Yeah, wow.
To get the money. So Hahnemann got arrested. He was in prison for 20. I think he died in prison. He was another old guy. He was 40 when he did the skyjacking. So him and DB are the only old guys. Everybody else was young.
Dude, I feel like such an underachiever right now.
Oh, slacking, baby.
Oh man.
But why do you think DB Cooper has become kind of like a folk hero in America? Just because he got away with it?
Well, I can tell you, there used to be a big party, like a celebration on the anniversary date down in the area where the FBI went looking. Because the FBI presence in that Amboy, Washington area was pretty significant. And then when the soldiers came in and there were hundreds of guys in the woods tromping around and all of that, it was big news. So anybody growing up in that area knows DB Cooper, knows the DB Cooper story. And there was a celebration every Thanksgiving of DB Cooper. It's called DB Cooper Days. And everybody's cheering DB Cooper on. No one's rooting for the feds.
Right.
No one's rooting for the cops at all. Everybody's rooting for DB.
Everybody's damn the man.
Lookalike contests and great music. Oh, I love the party. Oh, it was some of the best party I've ever been to. Beer was cheap. It was $2 a beer. Come on.
Nice.
What's not to love?
Beat that.
Right. You talk to those guys, every single person is convinced DB Cooper was a hero. He beat the man. He got the money. He's smart, and he played the game right and won. And he's a hero for a lot of people. There's a more existential dynamic going on. And because I get asked this question, and those of us in the DB Cooper world keep asking ourselves, why are we so crazy about DB Cooper? We keep coming back to this conference year after year. And for me, I look at it through an existential point of view, where there is a disturbance in the space-time continuum, where there's an unsolved mystery. We don't know who did it. We don't know where he came from. We don't know what happened to him. We don't know where he is now. Everything that we start looking into, like the money, we don't know how it got to the beach. We start testing the money, and we find that it has certain kinds of diatoms, little aquatic creatures that live in the water, are on the bills, but they're the kind of critters that only live in the water in the summertime. But Cooper landed in the wintertime. So how did summertime critters get on the bills? So the money was not exposed to the river until the summertime. How did that happen? Oh my God, I don't know. And looking at the tide, the particles on the tide, we now have really highly advanced automatic electronic telescope microscopes, really high power kind of stuff. A lot of people are putting money into this. Forget the FBI. Private people are putting serious money into their research and laboratory experiments and things like that. And they're finding things like rare earth minerals on the tide. They're finding stainless steel on the tide. They're finding different forms of pure tungsten and titanium on the tide. Interesting. It's like, where has this tide been? They've even found nuclear material on the tide. It's like, holy shamoly, this tide has been all over the world.
Right.
How did
it was from Area 51.
DB Cooper's neck.
Right.
So that's.
So, and you said we don't have any DNA, right?
Well, who do you talk to? Larry
I
Carr.
don't know.
Okay, Larry Carr, who has now become Ralph Himmelsbach, who was the public face of the FBI's investigation, passed away several years ago,
Mhm.
at 97, something like that. Larry Carr is now the public face and the public spokesperson of the FBI's investigation. And he pretty much, from my point of view, and he would not be happy to hear me say this, but I find that he spouts the party line. And I don't have meaningful conversations with him in a repartee about the evidence. And I
Yeah,
lost
he has
my
the
train of thought
DNA.
about Larry,
Yeah.
but Larry is now the face of it and presenting it to the public.
And you feel like he's kind of giving you political answers to it, just kind of.
He's a I experience him in my perspective. He's a company man. He was
So
born for the
line.
FBI.
Yep.
He lived for the FBI, and you know, you can take him out of the FBI, but you can't take the FBI out of him. That kind of thing. And it's in his bones. Okay.
I see.
And when you talk to an FBI agent, they're like a one-trick mind. I mean, a one-track mind.
Hmm.
And having an interview with them is very, very difficult because there's no repartee. They make a statement, and that's it. And that's my statement. Read it and weep. Goodbye. You know, it's like I'm one and done with these guys. And by the way, to toot my own horn, as far as I know, I've talked to more FBI agents directly involved and indirectly involved in the D.B. Cooper case, either back in the day or as the years have progressed. I've talked to 25 different agents who were involved in the D.B. Cooper case. And that's more than anybody else that I know.
Smokes.
All right. So,
Yeah.
So my perspective is not, you know, just itsy bitsy here and there. And I've been on the case since 2008. So that's
Right.
what, you know, that's a few years.
So FBI closed it in 2016, right?
Well, legally, yes. They reopened it unofficially around 2022. It's not quite clear what they did or why. A number of
Weird.
things have happened that have changed the FBI's perspective and posture in this case. They keep getting sued by people. And the first to sue them was a fellow by the name of Tom Colbert, who has written a major work and has had a lot of documentaries made about his suspect, Robert Rackstraw. And he sued the
I read
FBI.
about that guy.
Yeah, he sued the FBI big time. And Tom Colbert told me that he has invested over $150,000 of his own money into his investigation of D.B. Cooper. And he hired a high-powered D.C. attorney to sue the FBI to follow up on the evidence, the circumstantial evidence that Colbert provided to the FBI about his suspect Rackstraw. And the FBI never followed up. So the FBI made a deal in court with the judge and with Colbert's attorney and saying, we're not going to investigate your guy, but we will release the information, the files, after we redact all the names of people we feel are secondary to anybody's investigation. We want to protect the innocent.
Right. Yeah.
So that was, I don't know, 10 years ago, somewhere around there. So Colbert really burst open the floodgates to information. The FBI got caught they got jammed. They closed the case legally in 2016, which meant legally all of their files on DB Cooper now belong to the people. They belong to you and me. Okay. It's just that the FBI was the gatekeeper. And the FBI said, nah, we're going to pick and choose. And right now, we're not going to let anybody see nothing. What's your next question?
Right.
And the court said, that's not going to fly. You got to open up the files. And so the FBI has begun to release, and releases to this day, as far as I know, about 10, 20,000 files a year. And that's a lot.
Yeah.
And so Colbert is responsible for jump-starting the FBI investigation to yet another level.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then a fellow by the name of Eric Eulis doubled down on that and started suing the FBI for access to the tie and the money and all the other physical evidence that the FBI that they didn't want to share. And the court said, the public owns this. You don't.
Right. You close the case.
You have to make it available to legitimate researchers and investigators.
Dude,
And
that is cool.
that's when the FBI started tiptoeing back into the case. It's like, well, we're not going to give you the tie, but you can come with us as we send our agents into the lab and we'll test what you want us to test. You see? So it's kind of like tiptoeing back into the case without like officially opening it, but it is open.
That's
And
interesting.
yeah, and
let's go back to
I'm told, but not confirmed, but I have been told by multiple people that there is somebody in the FBI, one of their 17,000 field agents, has been selected as you're the lucky FBI, you're the new DB Cooper case agent. Lucky you. Congratulations.
So there's an agent Mulder of DB Cooper.
Somewhere down in the basement, down in,
Yep.
in some closet, you know.
down in the basement.
Right, right,
As long
somewhere.
as he has his red stapler.
Yeah, it's a swing line.
So
Hey,
after decades of research, do you think we're any closer to solving the case,
Yes.
or do you think it'll just be unsolved?
No, I think we'll solve it. The question is when. There's other our forensic evidence, our tools are getting better. And people are getting really serious about this. There are some really good scientists. Tom Kay, who's in charge of the Citizen Sleuth team, every year at the conference, he is the shining star of the DB Cooper conferences because he's coming up with lots of new information, lots of new research, lots of new technologies that he's applying, and it's fantastic. And so we're seeing a whole new window into this case. And there are some forensic tools that we have just begun to use, like remote viewing, psychic sleuthing, all of that, you know, the psychic medium, you know,
Right.
talking to people kind of thing, you know. And I have tried to enlist. Remote viewing is legitimate science.
Oh yeah.
The question is, how precise is it? And the military uses remote viewing for intelligence gathering, even though they tell everybody, no, we don't.
Yeah.
That it's all bogus, it's all crapola. No,
Yep.
it's
It's
real
not.
stuff.
Yep.
And there are private remote viewers who work with corporate industry because they want to get an edge, a competitive edge on, you know, like what does Toyota look like next year? Maybe we could put it into a Ford, you know, that kind of thing. And none of them, they're reluctant to join the DB Cooper case. And I don't understand that. I've reached out to them and they say, no, thanks. But I have asked one friend who's a pretty good medium. She talks to my mother and my dead mother. And she said, I don't know exactly if I talked to DB Cooper, but I reached out to him in the spirit world. And he's pretty grumpy. And he told me, I don't want to talk to nobody about nothing. And I certainly don't want anybody looking for my bones out there in the woods. So forget
Right.
about it.
Yeah.
So that's all we got on that end. In my book, I've tried remote viewing with whatever abilities I have. And they're modest in the extreme. But for my money, I believe my remote viewing has confirmed to me that Cooper had commando level skills and capabilities and confidence. I don't think this was some crazy bozo that just thought this up in a bar one night.
Yeah,
Now-
definitely not.
And it opens up the notion. There's a lot of investigation going into what I call the plumbers unit. Those guys that work with Nixon, the HR Haldeman, and the Iran Contra people, and the Contra down in Nicaragua, all of those guys, all that secret operation, the plumbers units and the water gates and all of that. And there's a number of individuals who have been identified as this. They had the abilities, they had the skills to be DB Cooper. And if they did, it would have served specific, real political issues, problems. Because the DB Cooper case, and the FBI, there are agents in the FBI who have admitted this to me, that the DB Cooper case transformed aviation safety because it compelled the federal government to federalize aviation safety. It was afterwards, within a year, we had the beginnings of the TSA, screening of all passengers, baggage screening, all of that. You had to show ID, no guns, no weapons, things, yada, yada, yada. So we had a period of about 10 months where we had 12 copycats and then nothing.
That leads me down another rabbit hole of like, all right, was this a false flag?
Yes. Was this a...
To take more rights away?
Well...
Or further control?
That's one perspective. The perspective I prefer is that the airlines realized that it was getting more and more dangerous to fly, and the pilots and the professionals working on the planes said, you got to do something. You got to up the security, because I don't want to end up blown up somewhere because the guy got pissed off and he didn't get his money in time. And the Cooper case, there are agents who have publicly written about the fact that they strongly suspect that the Cooper plan was in the works years before, because the transformation of the aviation safety, it had to be in the works, all the contracts, all the protocols, all the training mechanisms, making sure that all the airports are going to have the same kind of security stuff, was already in place. And it only took a year to implement it. All the legislation was like that. Everything was rubber stamped. And the transformation from way things were in the airports when Cooper stole his airplane, a year later, was radically different. And the government doesn't work that fast. So they must have been doing things behind the scenes, knowing that they were going to get the political momentum that Cooper earned them.
Yeah. 9/11 Patriot Act. Yeah, same thing.
Yeah.
Something similar.
Well, I haven't heard anybody asking for $250,000 and jumping out of a plane in a while. Let's go back to Rackstraw for a minute. I kind of want to pick your brain on that.
Sure.
So, I mean, this guy, he was kind of a wild card, right? He had the military experience, and he flirted with the media, kind of, right?
Yes.
I mean, he was asked several times, "Are you DB Cooper?" And he would just answer it in a way that was kind of genius for that time, for like what kind of character that guy seemed to be. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, to begin with, Rackstraw was more than a wild guy. He was a violent, unprincipled criminal. It is widely believed, certainly in his family, that he killed his stepfather and buried the body of his stepfather.
Yeah, he had a case for homicide against him.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
He beat that case. He beat that case in court. All right. So, but he was adjudicated. He was arrested and adjudicated for stealing an airplane, filing false reports. He was constantly in and out of trouble. He was considered to be a gun runner and selling munitions and ammunition and explosives to very bad people for years, and beat all the raps. And he did flirt with the media. He publicly told NBC affiliate, radio affiliate in LA, that he was DB Cooper. And they said, great, we're going to send, where are you? We're going to send a film crew over to you. And they showed up that afternoon, and he said, nah, I changed my mind. But Thomas Colbert adamantly believes that Robert Rackstraw was DB Cooper. And Robert Rackstraw has recruited 40 FBI agents and detectives and local law enforcement to join a team of investigators with him. And I started investigating the investigatory team and was threatened by one of the agents with arrest because they felt that legally I was interfering with their criminal investigation, even though they were acting as private citizens because they're all retired from the
Right.
FBI or from law enforcement. So it's like, to me, they're a nasty bunch chasing a nasty criminal. Thomas Colbert refuses to talk to me these days because I just ask too many troubling questions.
Yeah.
He's not able to answer. He's not able to answer convincingly some questions like, so how'd the money get to Tina Bar? How did, that buried money in the sand by the beach? How did it get there? When?
Right.
Tell me about that.
Yeah.
No answer.
Who dropped that off? Yeah.
His answer to me is, I'll let you guys play in the sand with that. That's not an answer.
Jeez.
That's
Yeah.
just being a snarky guy. Come on.
Yeah.
All right. Bruce, we like to do something fun here on Common X. Thank you for the discussion. We're entering a
Yeah, this
portion of
was
the show.
entertaining.
What's that?
I said it was very entertaining and
Yeah.
informative.
Let me say
So-
one more thing about all the suspects, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of suspects, and there's over 1,200 suspects. And I want to give a shout out to all the men who got turned into the FBI and got investigated by angry women who realized that telling the FBI that their ex-boyfriend or their ex-husband was D.B. Cooper was a really sweet payback, and even better in some ways than a divorce.
Awesome. I mean, it's not, but it's
The
crazy.
FBI the files
dick
are
move.
filled with investigations of guys turned in by their girlfriends.
You're kidding.
shout out to
That's real. Like girls were just like, women were just like, yeah, screw that guy. He's DB Cooper. He said things when he was
right.
drunk, or I found stuff in
Right.
the basement. Or
He wasn't here that night before Thanksgiving back in the he was supposed to be here, but he never showed.
unreal.
Mother was so upset that he didn't show up for dinner. That's another thing is all of the suspects who have a certain degree of legitimacy. It's amazing how many middle-aged white guys did not show up for Thanksgiving dinner in 1971 on Thanksgiving.
That's crazy.
He used to
Yeah.
frequent the bars a little more often than
I
now
don't know.
nowadays.
I don't know where they were, but they weren't with mommy. All right. I think we will find out in our lifetime. I think we will find out who DB Cooper is. We'll solve this case. I don't think any of the suspects are DB Cooper. And when we find out who DB Cooper really was, we're going to go, who's that? Really? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we like to do something a little fun here on Common X. You've been such a wonderful guest, and man, we've really enjoyed this discussion. We're gonna have you back when we get like some more developments, if you're cool with that. But
Sure.
we've entered a portion of the show that we like to call Jared's Five.
Okay.
All right. So this is where I ask all our guests the same 5 questions. Well, same 4. And then one is a question from our previous guest for you. And then at the end, I'll ask you a question to give to our next guest. All right. So our question from our previous guest is, have you ever heard of Jacob Collier?
No.
All right. He's a
Who's
younger
that?
upcoming musician, composer. I would suggest going out and checking YouTube. He's pretty amazing.
Send me an email about it.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
All right. So next question. What is your favorite movie of all time?
How about top 2 or 3? Sound of Music.
Oh, that's not music.
Godfather 1.
Mm-hmm.
Longest Day.
All right. Growing up, did you watch any cartoons, and like what was your favorite like cartoon growing up?
I didn't watch a lot of cartoons, but I love Saturday morning TV, like Howdy Doody
Oh yeah.
and the Mickey Mouse Club. I remember Anoop Funicello when she was 11 years old.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. What's one thing people don't know about you that maybe they should?
That I have written a book about my spiritual journey called Becoming God Realized, Stories from My Journey.
Check that out.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. If you could go back in time and tell your teenage self one thing, what would it be?
You're loved.
Awesome. All right. Question for you for our next guest. Could be anything.
Who's your next guest?
We don't usually say, but Ian's been given hints, so I don't know.
So
Might be
does
Ian.
that mean I got to keep giving the hints then?
I
I
don't
guess if
know.
I gave
Does it?
somebody else a hint. Okay. He's a professor, and I think they call him the Doctor of History. He's a pretty sharp dude.
Oh, Doctor of History, huh?
He's been
Okay.
out there a little bit.
My question is, do you enjoy being called the Doctor of History?
Nice.
Yeah, and I don't know if he's aware of that, but that
Okay.
just I think I saw that on Google or something. So hopefully he
In
knows about that.
In the DB Cooper world, I'm often called the mayor of Cooperville.
That's awesome.
Nice.
Yeah, and I enjoyed that for many years, but I think realistically now, because I'm not actively investigating, I'm not writing, haven't been for a couple of years. And so I believe I'm in the emeritus status. So I'm mayor emeritus of Cooperville.
All right. And where can people find your book, Bruce?
You can buy my book at Amazon.
Okay.
And I got websites. If you want to read the raw material, like the raw initial interviews with Ralph Himmelsbach and the FBI agents, the different guys I've talked to, Tina, looking for Tina. I've written extensively about Tina Mucklau, who was the flight attendant that was held hostage. Went looking for her for years. You can go to themountainnews.net, and that is my online news magazine. And that's where all the initial Cooper material got posted. And there are so many comments after my stories. I had to limit the amount of commentary to 1,000 postings because the WordPress just slowed down. Went, yeah, you know.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, so you can get information from me, and then you can see how the Cooper world reacted to it and added to it, or the craziness, or conspiracies or variations, different kinds of questions and things like that. If you want to know more about me, my website is brucesmithstoryteller.com. And because
Awesome.
my primary passion in life these days is being a public performer, telling stories, and a lot of true stories, and of personal transformation. So there's a spiritual perspective flavor
That's
to it all.
awesome, man.
Yeah.
Well, Bruce, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your decades of research into the mystery of DB Cooper. This case continues to fascinate and puzzle, and having your insight really brings a fresh perspective to one of America's greatest unsolved stories. For our listeners, if you want to dive deeper into Bruce's work, be sure to check out his book and writings, where he covers not only the details of the case, like he just said, but the culture and obsession that's grown around it. We'll drop links in the show notes so you can follow his work directly. As always, thank you for listening to the Common X podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, hit that subscribe button, leave us a review, and share this conversation with a friend who loves a good mystery. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and remember, the story's never over.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in today to the podcast, Common X with Jared and Ian. We really appreciate you guys and would love your support. So make sure you click that subscribe or like button, or follow us on all our social media platforms and on YouTube and Spotify, because that would really help us out. and that helps us bring more episodes to you guys every week, and hopefully from content that you guys want to see. So reach out, TikTok, YouTube, leave comments. If there's anything that you guys want to see or any guests that you want us to try and get on, let us know. We do have a good lineup coming. So thank you again. We love you guys. Thanks for your support. And we'll see you next time. And remember, common sense isn't that common. So that's why we're bringing common sense back from Generation X.